Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so pleased that you have found us here. It's 3 p.m. and we are here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. I'm your host, Hank Phillippi Ryan, and so honored that you have joined us here today. I'm the USA Today bestselling author of 16 going on 17 novels of suspense. My current novel is One Wrong Word, which just came out in mass market paperback, in addition to hardcover and trade paperback. And they're telling me that mass market paperbacks are going away. So that's kind of interesting. We can talk about that someday. My new book comes out on September the 9th. As you know, it is called All This Could Be Yours. I'll show you the precious. All This Could Be Yours comes out on September the 9th. And you know that is the same day that Dan Brown's new book comes out, the sequel to the Da Vinci Code. So won't we have fun? Anyway, but you can say, when you hear about that, you can say, my friend Hank has a book, All This Could Be Yours, coming out the same day, about an author on book tour, and a Faustian bargain is apparently about to come due. Terrifyingly due. But we are not here to talk about my book today. We are here to talk about Making Friends Can Be Murder by the wonderful Kathleen West. You know, let me tell you all, this book is unlike, you will love this. It is unlike any book you have ever read. It is quirky and funny and smart and thought-provoking and, you know, optimistic in the end, but a good mystery. It's twisty and fair. What other words can I use? You will absolutely love this. Making Friends Can Be Murder by Kathleen West, which comes out today. So happy Pub Day to Kathleen West. And she is coming to us from Minneapolis, where it is a beautiful day, I hear. Happy Pub Day.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. And I'm so excited that this book is finally out and available for people to read. It's really exciting.
You're a teacher in real life.
Yeah, in real life, I'm a teacher.
What do your kids in middle school, what do your kids say about your career as an author?
Well, it's kind of like being a mom where my own biological children don't care day to day too much about what my job is. And middle school teaching is about the same. Like from day to day, they're not like super interested in my author career, but every once in a while they get really excited about it. I talked about this book coming out maybe a month ago, and this little guy raised his hand and he's like, "You said you'd be keeping us posted about this, and I haven't heard about it for months." So they are really lovely and supportive, and, you know, have wished me well on the launch of this book. So they're very sweet.
I want to tell the group, so nice to see you all. Welcome. I want to tell the group that Kathleen was telling me earlier about the last day of school was Friday, and you did something that most authors and even teachers don't ordinarily do.
Yes, I'm back in middle school. So I've taught all grades in my career. This was year 23 in the classroom for me. But I've taught maybe 15 years of middle school out of those years. And at the end of the year, this year, we had something called Sprint into Summer, where the teachers wore like those blow up costumes. Mine was a shark. And we had to race across the football field. I was under the impression that I was second to last, but I saw a video today that made it pretty clear that I was last to even the clown. So,
you know, this is some sort of a metaphor for something. I'm not really quite sure what it is, and I'm laughing so hard trying to picture you in a blow up shark suit running.
I'll post a photo. Well, actually, there is a photo of it on my Instagram. My second most recent post, if you scroll through, you can see me in the shark outfit.
Which, listen to this segue. Could you tell us your Instagram?
Sure, it's at Kathleen West Writes.
Okay, at West Writes.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Don't go now, though. Look at the shark. Look at the shark later. But right now, we're here to talk about this wonderful book, Making Friends Can Be Murder, here on Crime Time on A Mighty Blaze. If you're new to Crime Time, welcome. I see Renee and Deborah and Mary are here. Hello, Kathy Lanigan and Sue Street, and Emily is here. Katie and Susie and Melanie. This is so nice to see you all. I really love that. And I'm so thrilled that you're here for Making Friends Can Be Murder. If you're new, you need to know that Crime Time, part of A Mighty Blaze, was started at the beginning of the pandemic by the wonderful powerhouse duo of Caroline Levitt and Jenna Blum to keep us reading, to keep us discovering new books, and maybe finding a new favorite book like Making Friends Can Be Murder. And we have all been doing this for more than 5 years now. So this is because of you. This is because of all of you. And we are incredibly grateful. I'm just going to babble for 30 more seconds so I can tell you a little bit about our author before Kathleen and I chat about this terrific book. Kathleen West is a veteran school teacher. She's had 23 years, which is astonishing, who writes fiction in the mornings and on the weekends. She lives in Minneapolis with, she says, her A+ human family and 3 B- dogs, which is adorable. And I can just picture those dogs.
Mhm.
Making Friends Can Be Murder is her fourth novel, and it is utterly, utterly, fabulously unique. Can you just tell us a little bit about it, and then we'll go more into what it's about?
Sure. It is about 6 women, all with the same name, who form a club of same namers. Their name is Sarah Jones. It's a high school students club to kind of restore her reputation, part of a school project that she has. And they finish the first part of their project, and then another woman named Sarah Jones, who lives in Minneapolis, is found dead. And so the group decides that it's their destiny. They must solve the mystery of the death of one of their own. So away they go.
So all the characters are named Sarah Jones. Many of the characters, all the characters in this group are named Sarah Jones. And I want to talk more about that in a minute. But where did that idea come from? The group of friends, the names, the fact that they decide to get together and solve a murder. What was the entirety of this? What was the domino that fell, and then what happened?
Yeah, well, I've written 3 other books that are not mysteries, contemporary fiction. And after that third one, I really wanted to try writing a mystery. That's my favorite genre to read. And probably like my first foray into adult literature when I was a kid was reading mysteries. So I just wanted to give it a try. And it took me a long time to land on a premise that was going to work. My own name, Kathleen West, is very common, and I frequently get emails for other real Kathleen Wests. Right now, there's a Kathleen who used my email address for her Tinder account. So like I get a lot of updates on that. There have been Kathleens who have been like yearbook advisors, Kathleens who are renting apartments in New Zealand. And I think because I was a Gmail early adopter and my email is just kathleen.west@gmail, then people type that in and think it's their email. So anyway, I started to wonder what would happen if I engaged with these emails or showed up at the things that I was invited to that were really meant for other Kathleens. And that's kind of where this idea for the book started. And I was teaching at an all-girls private Catholic school at the time. So my teenage character who starts the group came to me from that experience. And then, yeah, it grew from there.
And what it's like to be a teenager in school infuses this book and informs this book so wonderfully. But a couple more things about that. One is it's a cool premise, you all. Or you recognize that having the main group of characters, the ensemble cast, all be named Sarah Jones. But for an author, that creates a real dilemma, because how are you going to differentiate these people? It's really cool. They're all named Sarah. Then on the other problem is they're all named Sarah. So, and your solution to that is the cleverest thing I've ever heard. Can you talk a little bit about that, what it is and how you came up with it?
Sure. They all go by their ages in the book. So 17 is the character, the high school kid who starts the group. And then 30 is our main character. She's 30 because she's really making a lot of changes in her life, kind of prompted by that big birthday. There's a retiree who's 69, which I've taught middle school, so 69 is automatically funny to me. So she's that. And then there's like a middle-aged duo that are teachers that came easily to me. They're like 37 and 44. So they, or 38 and 44, they just kind of go by their ages. And then there is an imposter among the group. So she is 27. You find out right away that she's the imposter. But later when she has chapters in her point of view, like you just hear her real name. So that's kind of how it happened.
Do you remember the moment you figured that out?
I think it had to have been really early. I don't remember the moment, but I knew it was a problem right away. So I had to have started solving it right away. And so I think it must have been in the first few days of working on the book, because I had to differentiate them. They had to have different names somehow.
I gasped with delight and envy about this idea, because, you know, the idea of a really good idea is kind of elusive, and there's a million good ideas, but there aren't that many really good ideas that are unique and new. And I've never heard this before. The other thing that I love about it, and you're getting a lot of accolades and Lisa is saying, "Hello, ladies, cannot wait to read this book. Sounds very unique." Yes,
Lisa, yeah.
Lisa. So great. Everybody's applauding you. The other thing is that, and you all heard this, and we're talking about Making Friends Can Be Murder by Kathleen West. You all heard that the different ages of each Sarah Jones is what they call each other. And when Kathleen said their ages, we pictured them, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so cool, Kathleen, that that calling someone an age gives us so much more than their name. Can you talk a little bit about, in this multi-generational novel, and that's very carefully multi-generational, why that was important to you, and talk a little bit about how layered that is?
Yeah, I did a lot of thinking about like who would join this group. Like it had to be people like that would credibly sign up for a club of same namers. Like why would you do that? And what kind of person would show up to the meeting? So I wanted the group to be really diverse. And I was like, okay, well, someone who was retired and was looking for a new hobby might go. People who already have kind of like a quirky social media presence might go. They're already friends with each other and they have the same name. So then maybe they're looking to expand their universe. So it just was like, I wanted it to just be really, I wanted you to believe that these are the people that would show up to a group like that. And so this is the cast of characters that I landed on. And I knew the whole time that one of them would be a con artist and not actually a member of the group. And I needed a reason for her to join as well. And it turns out her con is finding people with common names and you know, using that as a way into their lives. So it worked out in that way too.
Did that come from real life?
No, I don't think so. I did a lot of researching on fraud. You know, like when I'm sure you know, having so many novels published that are thrillers, like the things you Google, you wonder, like, is anyone tracking this? But I tried to learn about like money laundering, and I tried to learn about different crimes. Suffice it to say, I would not be a good criminal myself. But I was looking for ways that people could like really get involved with each other. And one of the emails that I got as a Kathleen West was like a notification that a relative of mine had died and telling me that I was named in the will and testament. And I sort of thought like, well, is there any way that I could like respond to that? Not that I would, but like respond to that and get the money. And so that was kind of my way in. I'm like, okay, if you shared the same name, you could start picking up packages for that person. Like you could start convincing people if you had an ID that you were the right one. So
and you could rationalize you're not really lying.
No, you are that person. And they sent me the email. I didn't go seeking it out. So this was the kind of how I imagined the crime.
And I want to make it clear that these people, women, are together in real life in the book. They're not just online. So they see each other and do things together. And the opening scene, it is something about knitting on a tree.
Yeah, this was the original project for the group. The original project that they decided, like the high schooler brought the group together and they decided to have a project that they would work on. And they decided to yarn bomb an iconic tree in St. Paul. And so all of my books have taken place in the Twin Cities because this is where I've lived my whole life. So I Googled like most iconic trees in St. Paul and I picked one of them. And the beginning scene is them putting like textiles on this tree. And I still really like that scene. I like the way that everyone kind of describes it. And it kind of sets the tone for like, this is a weird group of people that do kind of odd things together. And so when they decide to work together to solve this murder, it's almost like, okay, sure. Like that would be the next logical step from yarn bombing.
Is there, okay, now forgive me, maybe I'm just too old, but is there yarn farming? Is that a thing?
Yeah, it's a thing. It's not something that I've done, but I've seen it. So who knows? You know, I do most of my writing in the morning before school, so I'm kind of foggy headed when I make these choices. So when you're asking me to think about when I decided something, I'm like, I don't even know. It's almost like I'm half asleep when I do it. But now that you know about it, if you Google it, you'll find these really fun images of like signs with yarn on them and trees and, you know, both natural and human-made objects covered in yarn.
And that's why you come to Crime Time, you all, right? Because you can learn about things. This is great. KK Neiman is saying it is so funny and so clever. And Sue Street says yarn bombing bonding. And I do think that is exactly what the scene shows, that they can work together and that the book is going to be funny and whimsical and unique, and it's going to be an ensemble cast. So it really works on so many levels. One of the characters who is not named Sarah Jones, however, who is completely important in this novel, is sort of a fledgling FBI agent.
Yeah.
Fledgling is exactly the word, I guess. Talk a little bit about him and why that conflict and that balance works so well in the book, because it really does.
Well, I really liked George. George Nightingale is my FBI agent, and he becomes an FBI agent. He's kind of supposed to take over the family business. Everyone in the book is supposed to do something that they're not doing. And George was supposed to take over the family business, which was a summer camp. But when he was 10 years old, his best friend was kidnapped, and he was the last kind of witness, or the last person to see his friend before he was kidnapped. And that kidnapping has become like the longest unsolved case in Minnesota. So he's lived with this grief and this feeling that he was responsible for his friend's death and all of his years or kidnapping, a presumed death. And he's been working at this camp trying to like create great experiences for other kids, kind of as like an atonement for that. And then eventually he decides to join the FBI. And so this is his first case. Like he's hoping to get assigned to like major cases, like kidnapping, maybe even the kidnapping that's unsolved. And instead he's assigned to like small time fraud. And so the Sarah case is the first case that he is working on. And the main Sarah 30, is his confidential human informant. And of course, then he falls in love with her. So,
and she doesn't know it at first.
No, she knows that it's not a secret that he is in the FBI, but he doesn't tell her that she is informing on the Sarah Joneses and like that she's providing intel on people in her group. So that creates a conflict there between them.
I love that because it does. I mean, there are two sides to everyone in this book. There are reasons that people do things. There are reasons that people make the decisions that they make. And you're so clear about that and so fair about that. And I love George too. And he's one of the finding out, learning with him how to be an FBI agent is lovely. And going with him through his growth to become an FBI agent with his own set of fears and his own set of real skills is really great. But it must have been really fun to write him.
It was so fun to write George. And he did, like, his voice came pretty easily to me. Like, I understood him from the beginning. You know how some characters you're like, okay, I really need to dig deeper and figure out what in the backstory is leading to XYZ. But with George, he was just really clear to me. And I think part of that is like the camp that he worked at is a camp that I worked at with a different name. Like I really understood where he was coming from. And what he wanted to do, and the feeling that he was disappointing his parents with this choice, so he needed to make it worth it. I just really connected with all of his reasons for doing what he did. And something that was surprising to me, I really love his boss. His boss is this woman named Supervisory Special Agent in Charge Jane Vance. And I really like to say that whole thing, Supervisory Special Agent in Charge Jane Vance. And I love her. So I had a lot of fun writing those FBI scenes and also writing the mentorship between his boss and George. She's really minor character, but in my mind, she has a big role.
I see her as a big role too. I really liked it. I love how the role that she played to him as sort of mentor and also sort of not secret admirer, but you can tell that she thinks he's a good guy and deserves to succeed. And she's sort of showing him the way to succeed. And in a lovely way. The whole book is lovely. I mean, I think that, rewinding a little bit to your teaching days, one of the dominoes that falls early on is how 17 creates the group as a result of something that she did, sort of for atonement. Can you talk a little bit about where that came from and why you decided to use that as an opening point?
Yeah, I needed a reason for this girl to do this too. I say everyone's doing something wrong, and she's looking for a way to distinguish herself, and she has this name that is super common, but she has been somebody at her school, and the school, there's a lot of real places in this book, and the school is the school that I went to from pre-K through 12 with a different name, and she has been really important in this small pond of her school. Until another girl comes to school and has her same name. But that girl is Serafina, so it's not Sarah, which everyone else is. And she does some really mean things to Serafina via social media, like basically online bullying, cyberbullying to Serafina. And so she has to pay for that. And kind of the irony of it is that she's not hurting the other Sarah Jones. Like she's the one with no social power. So although she did these mean things, it really doesn't hurt the other person. It only hurts her. And her mentor at school, just as George has a mentor at his job, she's got a mentor at school, Sister Mary Teresa, who really believes in her and thinks that she can do better. And so kind of guides her in this intergenerational project. Like find some real meaning in your life is the idea. And then there are some connections that build between the different groups too as it goes.
Yes. I mean, I think that Sister Mary Teresa, who is lovely and whose sort of mantra is that you can grow and change and you can be redeemed, is a lovely theme throughout. And so many of the people in the novel touch on that theme.
Yeah.
We are not always who we are at day one, but that we can evolve. And that's important in a novel too, for us as readers, to watch someone change throughout.
Yeah, and I was just talking about that with a friend this morning, a teaching friend of mine that I worked with in 6th grade, and we were talking about how like you spend a year with a 6th grader and you think you might know how they're going to turn out, but you actually don't. And if you get in touch with those kids 10 years later or 5 years later, even, you realize that the time you had with them was just a moment in time. And a lot of the characters in this book are struggling with a moment in time from their past, and they've grown since that time and kind of want to prove that they're somebody different. So yeah, that's an important idea for me in my life too. Like I really hope that I can become better and smarter and kinder and more loving, like as I get older and older too. So I was able to reflect that in these characters, and I'm really happy about that.
And you use that so nicely because they are different stair steps of age. That people have been through what other people are going through, or are looking up to other people to see how they handled their life. How did you put yourself in Patricia? I so agree. What an interesting cast of characters. Yeah. So right. And putting them together in this sort of melting pot is such a good way for you, Kathleen, to illustrate the moments in time of people's lives. Can you talk about, was it fun?
It was so fun. I mean, writing the book was actually pretty miserable, but now the book is so fun. You know, like it took me a long time and I was going through a really hard time. The villain in the book, her brother has died, or he is dying basically as the book is happening. And my brother died in the spring of 2021. So this whole book was written like during my grieving of that, and conceived of during my grieving, and also my regrets about what kind of sister I had been to him. Where we were extremely different, and I just had an easier time like navigating the world and navigating our family and our parents and everything than he did. And I didn't often like stop and turn around and like offer a hand up. And I've since like forgiven myself for this, you know, but like working through some of the grief after his death was definitely part of the book. And the villain in the book, you know, has this dying brother. So I'm actually the most like the villain, although I have never stolen anyone's money or killed anyone. Yeah. And there were a couple times like because it was really emotionally demanding. And I remember going out for a walk and thinking like, oh, this villain character is doing everything for her brother. And then thinking like, well, she's a murderer. Like, you're not going to be a murderer. So kind of like, you know, thinking that through, making peace with some of the tough things that happened in my life around the time of writing. And so I fit in with her. And then, I mean, obviously my demographics are most similar to the middle-aged teachers in the book. Like we have the same job and we're about the same age. But I don't really have that much in common with them, probably more with all the other characters.
I mean, I just think it's so interesting how it shows you why only you could have written this. Only you could have written this, taking all the puzzle pieces of your life and all the puzzle pieces of your emotion, and then, you know, your desire to write a mystery and your desire to reveal, you know, the importance of the possibility of change and redemption. Only you could have done that. You know, what do you think about that?
Gosh, this is such a nice interview. I can't even believe I'm talking to you because you're such an iconic writer. And to have you be so kind about it is just really getting me. I really hope that people like find this book and think it's fun and quirky. And it does kind of like, I am a little bit of a weird person in a good way. Like, I like my weirdness. It fits in really well with my teaching and all the different things that I do. But like, I'm not like, I don't know, super typical. I don't meet a lot of people that have my same quirks. And I'm not saying that to like say like I'm so interesting or whatever, but I am kind of weird. So I feel like to have written a weird book that matches my kind of weirdness, it really delights me, and I'm really excited that you're seeing that.
Oh my goodness. Well, it's really fun to read. And I'm trying to make sure that you all know how much fun this is.
Yeah.
I do think though that, you channeled your weirdness pretty fabulously, because there are conventions that need to be followed in writing a mystery. There is some, if there are any kind of genre for which there are rules, there are some rules, and every single one of them, that you're playing fair, that you give all the clues, that if you were, that you do sleight of hand. If only we were thinking about it the right way, we would figure it out. But we could never figure it out. But you play fair with us in this. I mean, underneath the quirkiness is a solid mystery.
I'm so happy to hear that. I was worried all the way through copy edits that someone would be like, oh, you have this big plot hole. But I do have the best early readers who also read a ton of mysteries. So I was pretty confident. And my two early readers are not novelists themselves. They're just great readers and friends of mine. And so they read it, but then also my editor was very, very good at helping me put everything on the page. She really saw what I was getting at, and she would send me, editing this book with her was way different than my other ones. It was kind of like a laundry list. Like, okay, could you please make it clear why the police don't interview this person on this page? And I already knew the reason why, but like she was really great at helping me make sure that all those little reasons were there. Because I didn't ever want anyone to be pulled out of the story and be like, well, why didn't they just do X? And then they would have known or whatever.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think it's so wise, because we all do that. You do it. Everybody does.
I do it too. Yeah.
Why don't they just call the police, or why don't they just
Why didn't they just ask her that?
Yeah, exactly. And that's so frustrating. And in the classes that I teach about writing mystery, I say, just have the characters do what they would do.
Yeah.
Suspense can come from the answer, or the mystery can come from the answer, or lack of answer, or the lie that's the answer, or the changing of the subject. But just have them be real people, and you really can't go wrong with that. And you do that so gorgeously in Making Friends Can Be Murdered. Did you, it's such a tightrope, isn't it, though?
Yes.
Keep things secret, but it's not one bit confusing.
Yeah, I think it's also really interesting. Like sometimes I don't know, I will outline. I think I've heard of mystery writers who don't outline, but I don't think that would really work for me. My outline does change, but I have an outline from pretty much when I have my premise. But I won't always know. Like sometimes I'm like, I know something has to happen with these characters, so I'm going to put them in this room together, and I'm going to see what they say, and that really helped. In this book, there were a few moments where I did that. The daughters of the woman who died, I put them in a room, and I'm like, something has to come out. Like they have to be keeping a secret, but I didn't know what the secret was until I actually started writing the scene. So I think there's like a little bit of planning and then a little bit of alchemy that helps. Yeah.
100%. I mean, that the people who aren't writers are going to be saying, should you put the people in the room? And,
yeah, right.
And that's just so, that's what Dennis Lehane always said, you just take a bunch of people and put them in a room and see what happens.
See what they say, so.
Something will. So you knew the ending when you started.
Yes. And this book is like, you know who your killer is, like at the beginning, but you don't really know like the how or why. So maybe that was a little easier than just going for a full whodunit on my first try. I don't remember deciding to do that. That's just kind of like how it emerged. But I had the ending, and also I am a real happy ending person. So I knew that the threads would be tied up and everyone would leave the book with some kind of hopefulness at the end. I read some really dark stuff, but mostly I like a little lightness.
I love how optimistic this book is. I mean, when I finished it, I just went, oh, that's so nice.
I know. It's so nice. They're going to be okay.
Yeah. We won't tell you anymore.
Okay.
But I do think it's interesting because we kind of know they'll be okay.
Yeah, you do.
How they'll be okay. We can tell from your voice and from your dialogue and from your whole, redemptive tone that the whole point of this book, but that it may be hard along the way to get there. That journey to okay is what this is about.
Yeah. And I think that's just true in life, I think that a lot of things, like when I was dealing with this terrible grief of my brother dying, I'm like, okay, like I'm going to carry on, like I'm going to live my life and good things are going to happen to me in the future. But for right now, this is going to be really heavy and hard to carry. So, and that's a message that I try to give to my students a lot too. Like, yeah, you might be going through something really hard, but nothing hard is going to last forever. Like you're going to move forward and you're going to become somebody new and something different is going to happen to you later. So that's maybe a life philosophy that leaked into the book.
And it's the best of all the life philosophies. My husband and I don't celebrate the anniversary of the day we met.
Oh, okay.
Celebrate the anniversary of the day before we met.
Ooh, I love that.
Well, we call it You Never Know Day, because you never know what wonderful thing is about to happen.
Yeah.
And I really think that we see that in this book as well. We have used our half hour. This has gone way too long. Oh my God, way too quickly. Went by way too quickly. And we have so many questions from.
Okay.
Congratulations on this. Do you have 10 minutes to take questions?
Oh yes, this has been so nice. Thank you so much for having me. I just loved it so much.
That's so kind of you. I love being with you on your pub day, and I adore this book. So Betty says, I love the title. Was it always called that? Hey, Betty.
Oh gosh, no, I'm really bad at titles. So I never think of the title of my books. One of the early readers that I mentioned before, she's very good at thinking of titles. So sometimes she'll be the one to come up with it. But this book, it was called The Sarah Jones Project, which was a title that I really liked, or The Sarah Jones Murder Project. And my publisher didn't care for that, and the team didn't like it. And in the end, the team really liked Making Friends Can Be Murder. And I was like, if you guys are excited about this title, then I'll get excited about this title too. And now I really like it. Yeah. I'm hoping it could be a series, and then, Making Friends Can Be Murder, and then something else can be murder. So that would be good.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you about, that, because you do leave that door open.
Oh, I really want that. But there's no guarantee of that. I do have plans to write like a holiday novella myself with these characters. So even if they never get published again, I do plan to revisit them.
Because we love them and we don't want to leave them.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Honestly love them. Who else has a question? Let's see. What type of dogs do you have, says Sue Street?
Okay. Well, we have Teddy, who's a golden doodle, like probably 55 pounds, and he's 10 years old, but acts like he's a puppy still. And then we had a pandemic dog, a cockapoo, and her name is Ripper. And I thought that would be like kind of ironic because like this cute little docile cockapoo named Ripper, but she is pretty feisty. And then we inherited our third dog when my brother died. It was his dog, his beloved dog, Skip, who's now 15. And I asked my psychic, I was like, okay, can we, Skip nearing the end? And my psychic said, no, he has 2 years left and he's extremely resilient. So 2 more years of Skip.
You had me, and I asked my psychic.
Yes.
I know. It's talking for like 1,000 more hours. I really want to do that. I'm so sad we have to go in a minute. I'm calling you though. All right. Okay. One more question, Margaret. What happens when?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this because if I want to write a series with them, then what happens? I don't totally know. There is an epilogue, and 2 of them have had birthdays in the epilogue, so I need to figure this out ASAP. What will happen to them? Maybe they just continue going by their original ages because that's how they know each other. Or I don't know. I haven't solved that problem yet.
I'm now going to vote on this after giving it deep thought for about 4 seconds. Is that I don't think you can change their name.
Yeah, I don't either. So I think they have to stay the ages that they were when they met. I mean, they can get older, but they have to use those names.
Yeah. And then they can talk about, I remember when I was 17.
Yeah.
She said. Right. I mean, they can make it be funny. Well, just come here if you ever want any advice.
I will.
And if you all are so amazing, I know we have more questions, but we need to let Kathleen go because her pub day party is tonight. Yes. So excited about that. For Making Friends Can Be Murder. One of you is about to win a copy of this book. Let's spin the wheel of fun and see who will do that. I love seeing all of your names.
That is really fun.
Isn't it fun?
Yeah.
And it also shows that it's, random, the random selection of the winner. So sometimes Mighty Blaze wins. Patricia Butler Stebbins. That's so great, Patricia. This is You are the luckiest fish in the world. So what you're going to do is email me to the address that's going to be on the screen. I'll email the producer. She'll email Kathleen's publicist, and then you'll get your book, because therein is the way. Therein is the way of publishing. Also, now the rest of you, let me say, if you are not Patricia, you know what to do. Run, 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 click, click, click. Get your copy of Making Friends Can Be Murder. And you know this is a wonderful gift for friends. And then you can all have book club and talk about it, and talk about what you would do if you were going to solve a murder, or if you all have the same names. I mean, Susie Baldwin, there must be other people named Susie Baldwin. You could find the Susie Baldwins, and it could all start here. Anyway, I'm babbling now. Patricia, you are the winner. Kathleen, thank you so much for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. I really enjoyed this so much.
I did too. Thank you. I'm going to hold on to you for 1 second. At 4:00, we have another interview. We're double booked on Crime Time today. This is the only time it's good to be double booked, is on Crime Time. And at 4:00, we'll talk to Karen Duquesne. Welcome to Murder Week. And I have to tell you that today is a theme. It is a theme because both of these are funny, quirky mysteries, totally different characters, completely different setting, completely different, sort of different themes, although it shows you how grief is such a commonality in our lives, and how fiction can sometimes sort of knit up the threads of our own factual lives. So welcome to Murder Week, Karen Duquesne, about a woman who travels to the UK to solve a fake murder. How did this happen? We'll talk to Karen Duquesne at 4:00. Meantime, run, 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 click, click, click. Making Friends Can Be Murder, published today by Kathleen West. And I'm looking at her publishing company, Berkeley, You Lucky Woman. This is so great. I highly, highly recommend it. Kathleen, thank you for being here.
Thanks again. So
and
nice.
Have a great party. You all, we will see you in 20 minutes or so. If you can't come at 4:00, next week I'm in New York at Thriller Fest, so we're taking a little hiatus just for the week. But after that, the week of the 24th, or whatever that is, you do the math, we will have the fabulous, iconic Megan Abbott with her brand new Eldorado Drive about a multi-level marketing scheme. She's amazing, so we can't wait for that. Meanwhile, we will see you in about 20 minutes for Karen Duquesne, Kathleen West. So nice to have you here. You all are completely fabulous. So remember, until next time, it is always safe inside a book.